Hi everyone, welcome to my next video. I might get a little emotional in this one because I'm going to share some of my past relationships. And even though you might say they failed, or I thought they failed at the time, looking back now at my old age of almost 70, I don't consider them failures anymore at all. And I really look forward to explaining why that is. And it's very emotional for me to think about these two men because I loved them deeply at the time, and I still do, even though neither one are here now on this earth. So it's been, gosh, taught to us from a young age to do well in life, get a good job, find that one person you can be happy with, settle down, and all of that. And I think right out of the gate, that's the wrong mindset because you might find that one person that you stay with for years and years. And that is wonderful if that happens for you because we're all different. And the person you meet may be the one person that is so fulfilling and so loving. And even though I'm sure there are issues with that person, you work it out. And I hear all the time people that have been married for years and years, and I admire that. But I'm talking more about those relationships that did not work out because at the time I viewed them as failures, but I do not now. And I do not believe that the people who were wrong for us were really wrong. And I'm going to explain that right now. And I'm going to use my first love as an example, who I wrote about in The Horseshoe. Love at first sight. It was more than love. I still can't explain it to this day how I felt when I first saw that man. It was an electrical charge that bolted my heart. And although we only spent a few nights together in front of a fire talking, he had his arm around me. And although I had just met him, I knew him already. And if you've read my book, The Horseshoe, it was a train wreck that crashed and burned. Yet that man that was so very wrong for me ended up so very right for me. Because what I learned from being with the wrong man was bigger than anything I ever could have imagined when I met him. And I think people are vehicles for lessons to be learned and stepping stones so that what we learn, we take with us. And what is life anyway but a series of moments all strung together? And I think I recently mentioned that in a previous video. And there's even a theory based on what time is. And that is that time is perhaps like a movie where it's already been arranged, it's already been recorded, it's already been set. But we are just living frame by frame without knowing what the next frame is. Now that's an interesting concept altogether because that might infringe upon what is free will. Are things really predetermined? Do we really have destiny and all of that? And I think there is truth to that, with the future holding still possibilities which allow us to choose. But I'm getting a little off track here. So the first love of my life was actually very wrong for me in many, many ways. He was a rebel. He was a member of a biker gang. He was a violent offender, and he spent time in prison. Now, why would I want to spend time with someone like that, right? Well, I saw beyond that. And if you can just take a minute and think about what I'm saying, I'm not looking at the person who failed in life, but the person who he was. And that may or may not make sense to you. But I saw his heart and soul the moment I saw him, and I loved him. Was I right for him? No, because I was not a biker chick. I was not willing to be incarcerated to partake in his um, ventures, and I was not interested in living his lifestyle. Yet, for a brief moment in time, we both spent what I believe a deeply connected experience, which I will take with me forever. And so, a man who was very wrong for me was very right for me in many, many ways. Because now, looking back, I can understand it. I can take with me the lessons I learned about myself, about how I felt for him, and how it is entirely possible to love someone that you just met. Now, there was another man who, shortly after this gentleman, I met, and he was also wrong for me. He, I guess you could call him a womanizer. Many girlfriends, lacked a stable job, lacked responsibility, and wasn't all that honest. But I was attracted to him as well because there was something about him that drew me to him. And on hot summer nights, he would throw pebbles on my bedroom window, and I would creep outside, and we would spend nights either at the beach or at a park. And they were the most incredibly romantic moments that I wish I could live all over again. There were major, major red flags that told me not to be with him. Yet I knew that all I would ever have would be those moments. And so those moments were good enough for me. Now you might think, gee, that's the wrong kind of man to be with. An irresponsible womanizer who only sporadically came by to be with me. Yet we had the same kind of connection, although not as strong as my previous man, Neil. Pete was different in his own way, and I loved him in another completely different way. And now looking back, these two men who were so wrong for me were really right for me because I was able to experience love in a very deep, meaningful way, however brief and however short-lived. They were deeply meaningful to me, and I will never forget either one of those men. Both of my marriages failed. Now I can honestly say that those men were wrong for me. But here's another part to this video that is really very insightful if you'd like to think about what I've realized. And that is that although these two men that I married were wrong for me, they were men that I chose to marry. So were they wrong for me, or did I make the wrong choices to be with the wrong men? There's some ducks out there screaming. I don't know why. These animals argue out here. First it's the crows and then it's the ducks, and I honestly don't get it. But what you can look at when you look at failed relationships, or what you consider to be failed relationships, maybe they were right for you, so that you can look back and learn, why did they fail? Why were you with them in the first place? And were you right for them, or were you wrong for them too? Now that's an interesting thought, because it's easy to look at the other person and say, well, he wasn't this or she wasn't that, and I had to leave, or I'd had enough. But that's not really the whole picture, because the whole picture is, what did you expect to be in that relationship? How did you see that person in regards to contributing to your life? Were your expectations too high? Or were you ignoring um, signs that had been there all along and you were hoping to change that person? What was it about you that caused you to want to be with these men? And what have you learned since, right? So even though a man or a woman or whoever you think was wrong for you, how about thinking at it as if you're standing back from a distance and thinking about the whole picture, you and them? What was it that drew you together? What was it that made you realize it wasn't working or maybe never could work? And what was it about you that he or she was attracted to? And what was it about you that you wished you had done differently? So I find my past loves, those two men that I felt deeply, deeply in love with, and I still do, who were the very most wrong for me, they were actually the very most right for me. Because I would not be the person today as wise and as reflective and as appreciative of those moments had I not met them. So I look at relationships differently. I don't look at a marriage as a failure. I don't think marriages should be legal contracts anyway. I think marriages should be renewable, like your car insurance. Every few years, do you want to renew it? And if not, just let it expire. I mean, marriage is more of a legal obligation than a spiritual obligation. And it is so darn easy to get married, and it is so darn expensive and complicated to get a divorce. And it just doesn't feel fair that it should be that way. Now, were my marriages failures? In a way, yes, because I knew going into them the problems that I would be encountering. And I knew subconsciously that I was jumping into something that I perhaps should not. Yet I did it anyway. And do I regret it? Yes, I do. But still, there were things I learned and things that I gained about myself that I didn't know beforehand. So I think there's a lot to be said for failed relationships, or what we call failed relationships. And I think society places too much on what works and what doesn't. Because sometimes, just because someone is married for 40 years doesn't mean they were happy for 40 years. Maybe they're staying together because they're too afraid to be apart. Or maybe one can't support themselves on their own and they stay married. Maybe they stay married because of their religious beliefs, or because of finances, or because neither one wants to give up the house they bought together. We don't know why people stay together. And sure, there are many very happy couples who have been together for years. However, I believe they are the exception. And I think that is a beautiful thing when you find someone or someone finds you and you just mesh together and you can enjoy yourselves together um, in a very beautiful way for many, many years. And I fully support that, and I think that is wonderful. And maybe that is our dream when we meet someone, because we want that forever after romance. We want that happily ever after concept because we've been taught in storybooks and fairy tales that if Cinderella did it, or if so and so did it, maybe we can too. But maybe we're trying too hard. Maybe we're trying to take that one person who is not right for us in that sense and considering them a failure because we didn't get our forever after or happily ever after. And I think that ruins it, because I consider these two men who were very wrong for me in one sense, they were very right for me in another. And the man who used to throw pebbles on my window at night, my bedroom window, and I used to sneak out of the house and spend time with him, I didn't care that he was seeing other women. I was insecure, I was lonely, and I valued the time we had together. And might sound strange, but I did record a video previously, and I don't remember what the name of it was, but 25 years later, I connected with him again, and our feelings were the same. And had that been a relationship that had burnt out and smoldered and was no longer, we would not have had the same feelings 25 years later for each other. And I declined being with him because I had matured and I had realized that this man would never settle down. And I told him I still loved him, knowing that we could never be together, yet we still loved each other. And that is a beautiful thing. You don't need a forever after to love someone. You can string those moments together and incorporate them into your memories as very special relationships and very special moments that no one can ever take away. So if someone ever considers your marriage a failure or your dating partner a failure, I think they're only seeing it on one level. And over time, especially at my age, I can look back now in hindsight and understand more what those relationships really did for me. And if you're younger than me, if you're in your 20s or 30s, I don't think you have the life experiences, and I mean this in the best of ways. You don't have the life experiences to reflect what these relationships may have an impact on you in later years. And so I wanted to share these two beautiful experiences with the men that were so crazy wrong for me, yet I still love them, and I always will, and I treasure those moments. And who's to say that a summer with someone or a Christmas night with someone can't be just as meaningful as 20 years with someone? Because those men were much more important to me than other men that I did spend years with. And so I love talking about them, and I thought I was going to get more emotional than I am. But I would love to hear about any of your relationships that you thought at first failed, but now looking back, you can see how maybe they weren't really failures. They were just moments in time where perhaps both of you were confused, both of you were struggling, and both of you had no idea what you were doing. Yet you met each other and you shared time together. And even though you both went on in separate directions, it doesn't mean it was a failure. It just means that you experienced a moment in time or moments in time together. And I think that is an incredibly beautiful thing. And I wanted you to hear the quiet here. When you know it, the minute I say quiet, the crows start screaming again. If any of you know why crows scream, maybe they don't want me sitting here. Maybe they have a nest. Because I came out here about a week ago and recorded a video, and they did the same thing. So maybe they're very territorial and they just don't like me near their tree. I don't know. But thank you so much, everyone. I'm up to 16,000 subscribers, which is just amazing. And I so enjoy sharing my life lessons with you. And I have No idea what that animal was. I think it was a duck. And I love the sound of the crickets out here at night, and all of the peace and quiet that I encountered. And I hope the drought passes over soon, and I hope any of you experiencing the wildfire smoke, I do wish the best for you. And I'm horrified by all the fires that are going on in the world, and it is very scary and very sad and very tragic. So wherever you are, I hope you're safe, and I hope that you can find safety if you're in a dangerous area. So please feel free to leave your comments, your questions, and especially for my next You Asked, I'm Answering videos. I write them all down so that I can prepare for my next Friday's You Asked, I'm Answering videos. So thanks so much, everyone. Take care, and I hope you're all having a great evening.